How was everyone?
Great.
Hopefully you had a chance to see the keynote. Alex was incredible. If you didn't, I know there were a number of folks live streaming, so we'll have content to post on social media. Not sure why you all came to this breakout session. I'm assuming it's because the other two you found a little bit more boring, so you defaulted to this. Who in the room knows me or knows my story, or a little bit about my story? Okay, a couple. All I wanted to do today was share a perspective. I wanted to give you my perspective on what work is today, what it's not. I get asked to speak on this topic frequently, and I think it's because I don't buy into status quo. I actually am always looking to evolve, to grow, and to change. And a little bit about my story today that I'll tell you about will give you some of that perspective. And I think as we attempt to dive into this topic, it's important for everyone in the room for 30 minutes to be as introspective as you can. Because I'm not going to give you anything today that is based in facts and figures. I'll give you a little bit of research, but a lot of this is just tried and true and proven from my experience in business. Fear. I thought it was really important to lead this off with a conversation about fear. That's poison ivy. It is probably the thing I am most afraid of in the world. I'm super allergic to it. When I get poison ivy, it's terrible. But my health petrifies me as it does so many others. My health is the one thing that I know my energy is what enables me to move forward and to do things in work, in business, and in my personal relationships, to go all in. But I'm fearful. Straight up. Alex talks about, in his book, The Third Door, this difference between fear and courage. Every leader has fear. There's no leader that is fearless. And if they are, they're just lying to themselves. Every leader has fear, but great leaders have courage. They can look fear in the face, know that it's scary, and be comfortable in what Alex calls agree with fear. Uncertainty. My life is incredibly uncertain. This is actually a rendering of our new office that we're going to be moving into at a tech campus called Riverwood here in Rochester. It's an old sales and marketing center that Kodak used to have. We're going to be the second tenant there. It's amazing. I will tell you, I am incredibly uncertain. Will others join this tech campus and allow it to become the Silicon Valley of Rochester? In our business, every single day, I'm uncertain if our customers will be our customers tomorrow. And every morning I wake up with a pit in my stomach because I don't know if we're going out of business. Not because we're not doing well, not because we're not trying our asses off, but because the market doesn't lie. Customers buy or they don't. It's binary. And doubt. This is literally a pool that I filled up with water. I posted this picture on Facebook a few years ago. It kind of went viral. The day was so warm. It was like yesterday. It was in the 90s. And something happened. I'm not quite sure even now. But the pool started emptying into my backyard. It was crazy. I fail a ton. This is like just one sliver, one example of how much I fail in my life. I can't even put a pool in my backyard without it emptying into my backyard. But I truly believe when you're all in, you have to fail. You absolutely have to fail. And that doubt is real. But that's what also keeps me on my toes and allows me to persevere and move forward, regardless of my age, regardless of the fact that I'm a millennial. Perspective's an interesting thing. I talk to a lot of folks in our organization about this. Young or old, perspective is this really interesting thing that I don't think gets talked about enough. And today, I hope you take away a little bit more perspective. I did not agree to be here and have this dialogue with you, and I do want this to turn into a dialogue in a moment, because of anything more than I believe that in sharing our stories, we can all learn from each other. And I'm going to ask you to please share your stories when we get a little bit further into this, because I think for this to be engaging is super important. But perspective is something, and I'm going to reference it 3 times in our dialogue today. Perspective is something that I think evolves over time. Perspective means everything. So I'm going to entertain you. There's 3 things I hope you can walk away with from today. If at the very least you walk away with 1, that's cool. First thing, life does not and will not happen to anyone. It happens for you. Perspective. I hope to change at least 1 fucking crazy belief you have about millennials today. Because I'm sick of talking about it, I'm sick of hearing about it, and I'm surrounded by it. And if you are in a role, or you're in a transition period in your life, or you're working as part of a group, I believe you can actually hire anyone to do anything in your organization, regardless of age, their background, their gender, their race. And I want to give you some data today that actually suggests that that's not an opinion, that that is a fact. And I love feedback. I audit myself all the time. I would love for you to audit me. Give me the feedback. That's my email, jc@innovativesol.com. All right. Here's the deal. With respect to my journey, tons of bumps in the road. I've always loved tech. I knew when I went to RIT, I was in this weird place of, do I go all in on tech? I like business, so I ended up minoring in marketing. I had this really cool company. It was called Rent-A-Geek. It was before Geek Squad. I would go to people's houses, and I would set up, fix, repair, diagnose computer problems. And I learned a ton about people through that process. And I had the good fortune of landing a co-op at while I was RIT, at Innovative Solutions. And I was employee number 19. This was in 2003. And the irony kind of underneath all of it, I was actually the runner-up. I was the number 2. There was a woman who was supposed to get the job, and she bailed. I think she ended up taking a gig at Paychex, where I actually had worked prior in an internship. And so I was super, super grateful of this co-op. So in 2003, I joined this really interesting organization as the only millennial. And when I walked in, it was like everybody was on their own island. Everything was siloed. This is actually a picture from space of this amazing place in the Bahamas called Exuma. Every island is gorgeous, beautiful, and you really can't get to each of them easily. It reminded me a lot of what Innovative used to be like. And I share that with you because we had stood the test of time up until that point, from 1989 to 2003. And people respected our business, but we were really this best kept secret in a lot of ways. Dave Wolf from Just Solutions had mentioned his business this morning is a best kept secret. I empathize with that. I remember those days. Well, By 2007, I had gotten out of my co-op into a full-time role at Innovative. I was working my tail off. I had finally graduated from RIT. I thought about not even taking my last few courses. Thank goodness I had these amazing mentors that were like, absolutely not. You're going to get the piece of paper, get done with school. It's what you paid all this money for. Get it done. By that time, we grew to about 30 people. And what was interesting is we were able to grow our customer base. So when I came in 2003, we only had about 75 customers. And by 2007, we had almost doubled or so that customer base. There was some churn. And I learned a lot about business. I learned about how you interact with people that really are on their own island. They don't want to interact with you. They are really happy serving a customer, and that's okay. And some of this might sound familiar in your own organization. I was 25, and I felt like at that time I was super happy, but I didn't really understand kind of what was going to be my next step. When Alex talked this morning about being in that place of what are you going to do with your life, I had some of those moments still in 2007. Well, there were 2 other millennials in the company, and both of them ended up leaving. They ended up taking tech jobs somewhere else. And so I had this moment of truth. And this happened, as I said, this happened 3 times in my career thus far, where I thought about, is the grass greener somewhere else? I remember going home one night. I was still living at home. As I had bought a condo, and I was rehabbing it. My dad was there. He asked me if I wanted dinner. I said, sure. He made me dinner. And my mom, who I'm super, super close with, she at the time was traveling back and forth between Rochester to Fort Myers for this amazing job that she got as a compliance officer. So it was an interesting point in my life because I actually was able to hang out with my dad more often. My dad's a super successful business guy that has just influenced my life in so many ways. We're sitting down, we're eating dinner. He goes, so what's going on with work? And I'm like, I'm thinking about leaving. Maybe I'm going to work for Microsoft, because they were a big partner of ours. And I'm like, I'm just going to hightail it. And I think about this because this was amazing that I actually had this thought in my head. And my dad goes, well, what do you value at work? And I was telling him all the things I was learning, all the people I learned from. And he goes, Justin, you're fucking ungrateful. I was like, what do you mean, Dad? I'm building the business. We doubled the customer. What are you talking about? He goes, don't forget, they gave you a break. And don't forget the reasons that you've chosen to stay there. And think about those things that you're potentially going to go running after, and see what you can bring into your work now and stay. Thank God he had that conversation with me. Never forget it. So 2008's rolling through. This is an adoption curve of electronic health records from 2008 to 2015. Is anybody in the healthcare space in this room work in healthcare? Okay, only a few. It's amazing that prior to 2008, you would go to a doctor and they didn't have computers. I'm still floored by that to this day. We were in this really interesting time. There's this thing called the diffusion of innovation. It came out in the 60s. It predicts how every major innovation will hit the market, and ultimately, by percentage, groups of people that will adopt. Starting from your innovators that buy the latest and greatest, regardless if it's tested, to your early adopters, and then from your early adopters to your early majority, there's this thing they call the chasm. It's between this 13.5% and 34%. When the chasm is crossed, everything goes mainstream. And then you work your way into your late majority, and then ultimately to your laggards who will only buy, because they absolutely have to. They would still buy they would still buy rotary phones if they still existed. How do I tell you all of that? Well, from 2008 to 2011, we aligned as a business heavily to this electronic health record market. So if you go to a doctor today in Rochester, chances are, it's about a 90% chance, our company implemented that EHR. Right place, right time. 2010 marked a really interesting time in our history. We were about 60 people. We grew through the recession when most businesses were just holding on or going out of business. We saw that 40% growth, and it was a whirlwind. I had a really, really, really great set of lessons learned through what it means to deal with growing pains. And through selling in all of that vertical in the healthcare space, we were able to hire more talent, and some of that talent was younger. So by that time, there were about 10 of us millennials in the company. Why do I share this with you? Well, the majority of our company didn't come from a generation that I came from. Here we are again. Great success as a business, and I'm asking the same question. Is the grass greener somewhere else? Maybe I'll leave. Maybe I'll bounce. What do I want? Should I leave now? Maybe I could go do it on my own. So I had all these entrepreneurial tendencies. Was I an entrepreneur? And I got in the truck one day with Bob Titus, our chairman now, CEO at the time. Bob and I drove up to Lake Placid with friends. We were going up to celebrate. I had been awarded the RBJ 40 under 40. I was the second youngest person ever to get this prestigious award. So Bob wanted to celebrate. I didn't give a shit about that. I just wanted to spend time with Bob. I said, Bob, why can't I buy the business? And he equates me to the dog humping on his leg. And he's like, we'll get there. But it planted the seed that ultimately, by 2012, our owners, there were three other partners at the time, they started really discussing a succession plan. And this gave me hope. And we built our first strategy map and our balanced scorecard. And it was hard. It took us about 13 months to do. I'd never seen a strategy map. I'd never been exposed to a balanced scorecard before in a small company. And it was determined that 5 of us were going to potentially buy the business. One of us was a millennial. Me. That's what our balanced scorecard looked like. This fucking thing was ugly. People didn't know what they were looking at when they saw this, but it was the start. We had all these objectives, and they aligned to all sorts of really cool stuff, and we didn't have baselines in 2013 for a lot of stuff, so it was all over the place, but we were trying as a business. So we made a huge mistake in 13. We went in the wrong direction. We actually thought we could just, we were at that time primarily focused on small to mid-sized businesses. And a small to mid-sized business is a lot different than an enterprise. Enterprises, bigger companies, need more structure, governance, all sorts of really great stuff. We thought we could just go into that market. So we hired somebody on board to change our service delivery model. We eroded the client experience. Clients were leaving. And before we knew it, there were actually only 3 of us left in the succession planning conversation. And we had these 30 clients in July of 2013 that were on this thing called a hot list. They were all about to leave. And we were petrified. We never lost customers. Like, customers never left us. We, at that time, were supporting about 250 clients. We'd done all this work in the medical space. If a customer left us, it was because they were getting bought by some big conglomerate or something like that. 30 customers leaving us was unheard of. And it was very evident people were trying to live up to standards within our strategy map, not live into them. There's a very big difference I'll talk about in a second. We gained perspective. This is a photo that went viral on Reddit. Looks like these pigeons are literally the size of this car. You can kind of see it on the projector. There is actually a ledge that they're sitting on. And it felt like that in 2013. We gained a ton of perspective. It was like, all these customers are leaving. The world is going to come to an end. What do we do? All right, let's slow down. What did we change? Let's figure out what we need to obviously put back in place. And we brought everything back into perspective, and we needed to get it back on our feet. And so that summer, August of 2013, we didn't lose any of those 30 customers that were prospectively going to go because we focused back on the things that we knew we did well. Serving small to mid-sized businesses, delivering amazing client experiences, being who we were. So 2014, we go back to basics, we're obsessed with that client experience. Our business recovers, and we have a major growth here. But the succession planning conversation got even more difficult. Because at this time, there was only one other individual and me who were prospectively going to be able to buy the business. I'm in an airplane, Christmas Day, and I get a text message from my brother. And he tells me that my middle brother had just passed away. And I need to call my parents immediately. I'm on an airplane. I can't call anyone. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting in the seat next to this gentleman who is really, really obese, hanging over the seat on top of me. And then next to me on the other side is this poor girl who had a terrible cold. And I'm at 30,000 feet for 2 hours thinking about how do I make sure my brother doesn't see my brother who had passed away. How do I get a hold of my best friends to intercept him? How does my sister-in-law keep it together and keep my nephew, who was 2.5 at the time, from all of this? And how do I get to my parents? And what do I say to them when I get off that plane? I will tell you with great tragedy, enormous pain that I am sure some of you have felt in your own lives. Those are the moments you gain the most amount of clarity anyone or anything can ever bring you. My life was forever altered. I wake up every morning thinking about my brother. And I made a choice at that time in my life to be obsessed with this process called life and to cherish every single day. It's not cliche to me. And I had my third moment of truth. Is the grass really greener somewhere else? How am I going to buy a business? Now at this point, I'm the only one. There's nobody else. And if I don't buy the business, it's going to be sold to private equity, or we are going to be acquired by a major competitor, and all of my friends and all of our hard work is done. But I didn't care. Maybe that grass was greener somewhere else. So I had sushi. Bob and I went for sushi. We sat down and we had the conversation. I said to Bob, listen, my life is all over the place right now, but nothing means more to me than seeing this through. He's like, Justin, we can take our... I'm like, no! We're going all in on this. Let's do this. And he said, okay, what's fair? And I said, Bob, you've been a friend, a mentor. You've been so much to me my entire life. We're going to do a deal. You're going to make all the terms. I'm not going to negotiate a single thing. And over that sushi roll, we agreed. Bob would do what was right for him. He would do what was right for me. And he would do what's right for the business. And it was the best deal we both have ever done. And it was the best deal in our company's history. So we got really clear on the vision and the mission for our organization, because people need to know where you're going. As Alex had said today, it's a great question and answer that was shared. We defined this thing called the transformation strategy, and we had about 55 people. 20 of us were millennials. We focused on this thing called the Golden Circle. There's a guy, Simon Sinek. We had a speaker last year who came from Simon's team. Kristen Hadid, who speaks actually this afternoon, she's from Simon's team as well. We focused on this thing. We focused on our why. Why were we in business? Not what we did or how we did it. Those are important too, but we reversed the order. Every company will tell you what they do, a little bit about how they do it, but very few will tell you why they did it. And we went right for it. We went right at it. What was our why? And in order to do that, we had to ask some hard questions. Who was innovative? How did I, as a leader of the business, who was getting ready to buy the business completely, how did I need to see the world differently? Did the company understand who we were? That's a really important question. And who saw the world through my lens as a millennial? This was a reality. And could we figure out a way to work with a new generation coming into the workplace that will make up the majority of the workplace by 2020? We knew this at that time. We still know that today. How will that impact us? And that was our team. Love these folks. Family. But that's not what our family photo looks like today. I went to the drawing board, and right before I bought the business and we did the transaction, I gave everybody this thing called a golden ticket. Some of you in the room have seen it, some of you have one. But I listed these 8 things that I felt were super important everybody knew. And if anybody was ever in question, the reason I called it the golden ticket was because I wanted people to be able to have something they could put on the table when they were questioning, like, what's the deal? Am I doing the right thing or the wrong thing? Well, if you're failing, guess what? Failure is required. And you know what? Your biography is not your destiny. So you may have done some things in the past. It doesn't mean you're going to do them in the future. And at the end of the day, our time is limited. And it is on all of our backs to learn and make this world better than when we came into it. Ooh. When you do shit like this in your business, in your team, in your family, within your friends, you shake the tree. And I didn't know that. But I got really clear, and in 2016, we did our buyout, and it was time for everyone to re-up. Had to. I was moving our business into a completely new direction for the future so that we could retain our relevance and grow. And I learned the lesson of a lifetime in business, and that is culture eats is an understatement. It will cripple strategy. It will eradicate strategy. It will make fun of your strategy. It will poke every hole in your strategy. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture, culture, culture. In September of 2016, the RBJ did an article on a very different, unorthodox thing that I employed in our organization. I asked everybody and all staff on a Friday to consider going home, hopping on Career Builder, and go interview for your new job. A job that you would go take. A job that was inspiring. And about 3/4 of the organization did it. About a quarter of the organization said, absolutely not, I'm happy right where I am. And I won't bore you with the details, but 12 of my friends hightailed it. They didn't believe in our strategy. They didn't necessarily align to our core values, those things on the golden ticket, and they didn't even believe that we could attain some of the goals that we set out to attain. This is my life's work to date. When Alex talks about it being gut-wrenching, I get that. Watching 12 of my friends tell me that they don't think that they can help us get there, people that I grew with, people that I sat around a table with, people I laughed with, leave. Thank God I have amazing friends, because I would never have been able to stomach that in my first year of owning a business. In hindsight, it was incredibly important to have the right people on the bus. Because in 2017, we tripled down on our culture. We defined it, we wore it, we talked it, we lived it, and it became very clear who we were as a company and who we were. 70 people, 35 of them new within a 2-year window. Very different looking company photo. 40 millennials. Perks and benefits that, okay. Perks and benefits that rival Google's. Unlimited PTO. Things I'll talk about in a moment that give people the ability to come back to the office and share their stories and feel that they can live a fulfilled life. Collaboration that oozes in every corner. We got crystal clear on our culture. And that led me to this really interesting place of understanding motivation. What does it take to create an environment, whether that's a team, a group, a business, that is motivated? Because I can't inspire people. I don't think any of us can. I think you create the environment that potentially inspires people. We all find inspiration in our own way. So I turned to Daniel Pink in his work, and he had this really famous book called Drive that ultimately accompanied a TED Talk that he did. And he references the candle problem. He gives somebody a book of matches, a box of tacks, and a candle. And the challenge is to get this candle lit to stick to the wall, or to stay on the wall. People come up with all sorts of strategies. And after a few minutes, people figure it out. Take a tack, put it inside of the box, put the candle in it, light the candle. Functional fixedness. It's this difference between how ultimately the objects are laid out in front of you. And Daniel Pink uses this concept to explain why you can't just pay people a lot of money to motivate them. And this research is endless. It's all over the place now. Well, in 2017, we got clear on motivators. We got really clear on creating autonomy, giving people the ability to find mastery in their work, and ultimately making sure everybody knew what the purpose was behind everything that they're doing. Because those 3 things are what define motivation for all of us as human beings. So let's talk about them real quick. Autonomy. Children play and explore on their own at a very young age. And that is indicative of the human condition. We all have a selfish gene. There's a book called The Selfish Gene by Dawkins, and he talks about the fact that we all have this in us, and it's all rooted in survival. And it's not about carrots and sticks, and especially in a newer generation, when you talk about the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic nature of motivation, you see people needing autonomy in order to find what they ultimately can lead into mastery of purpose. Mastery is this interesting thing. There's this whole concept of grit. How you want to master whatever it is that you go through, and whether you have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, 2 great books, and this whole concept of the asymptote. Now, an asymptote is nothing but a curved line that ultimately will never finish by reaching the other line. That is mastery. You actually never quite get to the destination. And that's a really important thing, especially for folks in my generation, to know. There is not always perfection. And lastly, purpose. What you love to do, what you ultimately are good at, what the world needs and what you can get made, what you can do to make money are the ingredients for defining purpose. And we talk a lot about this as a business. And so we use these three concepts in everything that we're doing as a business to understand what's really going to motivate people and give people some levels of autonomy. And I thought, you know what? I really got to share with everybody how we've adapted to this. Take away some things and hopefully it inspires some conversation. So here's what we're doing today. Our mission and vision are understood across the entire organization. That is JFK. He arguably had the greatest mission statement ever put forth. In 1961, he told the world that he wanted to send a man to the moon and return him home safely by the end of the decade. It's crystal clear. We live into our strategy. Those are measuring sticks. We don't break them out for anything. It's a joke. If people aren't living into it, there's something wrong. Living up to a standard we learned didn't really help us. And so our transformation strategy comes out of the organization. It's not a map that we put in front of everybody. It's something that everybody builds and contributes to. 3 minutes. Come into a meeting at our office. You will spend the first 3 minutes just chilling. Just talk about life. Talk about what's going on. We'll get to business. Let's take at least 3 minutes. Sometimes it's longer. We got to break it up. Playing too many YouTube videos. But there's something human about business. Because every business is made up of people. So we use 3 minutes of every meeting in the beginning just to talk about what's going on. Get a temperature. See where everybody's at. I love this. Head of the table. With the exception of one table in our office, there is no head of the table in our office. Our conference rooms have these waterfall edges. Nobody sits at the head of the table. And we have tons of round tables, but there's no head. A head of the table sends a message we found in our culture. And it was a message that we didn't necessarily align with. So we took out all the heads of the table. You literally can't sit there. We believe in this thing called holacracy. It's self-organization. So if you look at an org chart like ours, it's very flat. Everybody is required to have a deep sense of accountability. And we broke down the walls. And in our new space, you saw that rendering. There are no walls. Everybody's out in the open. And we have to be respectful of noise. But we want transparency. And we want people to be able to get up, walk, talk to somebody, jump in one of the 11 new rooms that we have built out for collaboration. And here's the other weird thing. At Innovative, everything's by committee. Everything. And we took this, it's a concept from Google. There's a book called Work Rules. A guy who ran culture for them wrote it. Amazing book, tons of stories in it. One of the things that always lasted with me is we're very similar to Google in this way. Everything is run by committee. You can't hire somebody, you can't fire somebody without a committee. What's interesting is that everybody has the ability to spend up to $1,000. No approval needed. Do the right thing. You see something that needs to be done, you have complete autonomy to spend up to $1,000. Just do it. You see a customer that needs something or is unhappy about the work we performed or how the outcome of their result impacted their business. Issue a credit. Trust people to collaborate and come to the right solution. Failure is required. And what's crazy is I meet a lot of folks, especially co-ops that we bring in, they think success looks like that. That is how success really looks like. And we fail often, and we do fail fairly quick, all by design. People over profit is my motto. I live that every day. We make 90-year decisions. We don't make 90-day decisions. People over profit. We eat a ton together. I cater lunch to the employees every single day, not because I'm a nice guy, not because I want a really nice benefit. Free of charge every day, our employees are fed at lunchtime. I also bring in breakfast one day a week. The reason for that is 30 to 40% of our organization is extremely mobile. They're out supporting customers face-to-face at their location. Food is the best lure at lunchtime. Bring them back to the office, they have a chance to sync up, collaborate, feel the energy in the office, stay connected to the business. It is a huge secret. Huge, huge secret to our success. We'll talk to somebody, stop emailing them, stop texting them. There's nothing like a personal conversation. We trust our people. I mentioned we have unlimited PTO. That is Danny. She's actually, she's one of our business analysts. That's her on one of her amazing trips. She takes all these amazing trips. I took one of her pics off her Facebook. Unlimited PTO. People need the ability to take time off when they want and for as long as they want. And that has been a strategy we've employed for now over 3 years. We laugh a ton. I don't know, man. We work with a lot of businesses. The ones that don't laugh, I don't know how they do it. We're human. We laugh a lot. Keep it real. And I write a letter to every new employee. And in that letter, I write this same message at the end of the letter. Welcoming to the organization, but reminding them that the goal is not to create the most amazing organization for themselves. It's to create it for everyone else. And so I'll bring up this one more time. Hopefully, these three things resonated in some way with you, and hopefully you can take something away. We have a few minutes for Q&A. Happy to open it up to the room. Yeah.
Hi. So, as a former HR person, I'm
Yes.
slowly transitioning away because I feel like HR has that connotation of being policy, procedure, and payroll and benefits, where
Yeah.
what HR should be doing is supporting organizations with stuff like this.
Yeah.
But it also takes a leader like yourself that sees that. And I wonder if there are folks in the room that kind of look at this, right? What Google does and what you're doing and what Optimax is doing and think, you know, free lunch doesn't build business, right? Or
right.
putting a slide in your office doesn't bring you customers. So
Yeah.
can you help kind of explain to leaders or people that work in companies that are like, hey, look at all these great things, how do you actually bring it back? How do you make it reality? And how do you help change that mindset of the people that think some of this stuff is, you know, crazy?
Yeah. I'll give you my opinion. There's a book I reference in here. It's called Mindset. It's by Carol Dweck. She's the most referenced author out of any book I've ever read. I read a book a day, so I read a lot. Mindset, Carol Dweck. Amazing, amazing book. There are two types of mindsets in the world. Fixed mindset, growth mindset. We have a lot of discussion about this in my family at home. We talk a lot about this. With my brother's passing, it's forced us to think about a lot of things really deep. To that end, there are many leaders, and I don't think it's just a Rochester thing, I think this is everywhere. There are many leaders with a fixed mindset. And some of the things that I referenced today, they'll never be employed. And I think that the fundamental difference between companies like ours that do all these amazing things for our people is actually pretty simple. We put our people before everything else. That's a philosophy. And that's not a philosophy that's accepted by every business or business owner. I've just found it's fucking ROI positive. When you put people first, the return on investment is enormous. And my thesis is that this is what's happened. This was what will happen throughout the world. You will see that a presentation like this will not be something that's presented on in probably another 5 to 10 years. At least that's my hope. I mean, I literally was thinking about this last night leaving here. Like, I can't believe I have to present on this because there's so many things people can do literally tomorrow to like start changing that mindset. But when you're working with folks in a fixed mindset, you'll never change that. And my suggestion would be go find a leader that does inspire you and gives you that enablement. Or go start your own business. Be an entrepreneur. I want to give time for our next presenter to set up. Thank you so much. I'll scoot to the back while I just unplug here in case there's any other questions. Thank you for all of your time.
Are all the presentations going to be available?
You know, that's a good question. If anybody emails me, I will have a version of this available.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things in there I want to...
Absolutely. Yeah. Or if there's a specific slide, I can also send that to you guys. No problem at all.